Hi, I'm Charlotte and this is Bookish Mama Blooms, and I'm here today to review Prince Harry's book, Spare. What a dreadful cover. Let's just start with that. I don't know what they were thinking. It's just the worst cover I've ever seen. He does not look good in this cover, and he does look all right a lot of the time. So I don't understand why they couldn't have had a picture of him and Meghan, or just kind of anything. The picture on the back, I think also, I just wish they hadn't. They've picked an army-ish one. Anyway, everything about the cover kind of sort of spells out the things that I didn't enjoy about this book, but there were things that I did get out of it, and I want to share them with you. I should probably begin, if it wasn't already wildly obvious, by saying that I am not a royalist, and I don't think the royal family should exist. I think the firm is just dreadful. The history behind the royal family, their current situation, where they supposedly bring in tourist money, etc., etc. I'm not convinced. So I have obviously come at this from an angle of bias. I do like Prince Harry as much as you can like someone you've never met. And I think that's extremely important. There are so many opinions, some of them extreme, on this couple that we do not know, that the only information we've had has been filtered through either a royal family that requires you to behave a certain way, dress a certain way, practice a certain etiquette, or the media, which has its whole other moral compass in that it's non-existent. How we can then form any kind of opinion on two individuals from that information, I have absolutely no idea. Knowing how racism works, knowing how the British media is disgusting, since they started getting bad press, then I almost began to take an interest in them that I didn't have prior to that. So when they got together, I was interested. I thought it was interesting that he was going to marry an American actress. I did wonder what would happen because she is black. But I wasn't fascinated. There was loads of other stuff going on in the world. When the media took a turn against them, that piqued my interest a bit more. And I think a lot of people on the left then started to sort of do Team Sussex to kind of counterbalance this right-wing, reductionist, racist, reactionary, just horrific kind of wall of hate that seemed to sort of slam against them. So, but even then I wouldn't necessarily say I knew anything, because you don't, you can't. But as I say, I know something about the topic. I've educated myself on colonialism, imperialism, racism, etc. So when this book was set to be released, I became interested because I thought, here's an opportunity that is just extremely rare. This is going to be a member of the royal family. I don't know if he is he still now? Don't know. Kind of talking without a filter. And that is, if you look at the history of the royals, if you look at even just the modern royal family, that is amazing. Like that, when is that opportunity going to present itself ever again, where someone from that family is going to kind of bear all? And I kind of wondered what we might expect from it. How frank was he going to be about things that had gone wrong and things that had gone, that happened? It turns out pretty frank. My main objection to this book, if anything, is editorial. I'm sorry, but I'm not impressed with the ghostwriter. He's I looked him up. Apparently he's like a famous ghostwriter who did Andre Agassi's book, which won awards. Whatever, I've not read Agassi's book and I've not read his other stuff, but the tactic I feel he decided to take with this, the ghostwriter, is to repeat a lot of the stories that Harry was telling him word for word, so that you get a sense of his voice, maybe his mannerisms, the way he tells a joke, etc. But there's a couple of problems with that. The first problem is that when you write things down, they don't sound the same, even in your own writerly voice, as they do when you speak. So for example, if I were to write down everything that I'm saying in this video and put it down on a piece of paper, that would not satisfy me as the way I would want to express myself in the written word. You get to choose, you get to sit down, you get to pick, you get to have, I don't know, you get to tell a better story for a start if you're writing it down. So to choose to kind of almost parrot the things that he's been told meant that some of the stories were just simply cringy, because they would have been funny maybe if you'd had a glass of wine, you were all sat around the table, but when you're reading them in a book, they just fell flat. They also were bitty because, again, when you talk conversationally, you don't necessarily, you don't have that hindsight where you can look and see, have I stuck to the topic? Have I gone off plot? Is there a point to this story? Am I going to get to this point at any time soon? This book is set in chapters that are sort of 2 pages long. Like, one part of the book has got over 70 chapters. What's that? It's got 87 chapters. That's just one part of the book. And it's like that because some of the chapters are 1.5 pages long. So because of the way that the ghostwriter has chosen to write the book, it felt to me like I was reading 87 Wikipedia articles back to back, and nobody wants to do that. So narrative structure wise, appalling, and I don't understand why that was the tactic taken. The only thing I can kind of think is that in a weird way, I feel like they were appealing to an audience that actually hates Harry and Meghan, because for me, the people that I've encountered that do not like them tend not to be in-depth readers. You know, they're sort of thriller readers. I mean, that's half the reason why they're reading the tabloids, because it's like reading a gossip, you know, magazine. It's like reading a thriller. It's small, it's punchy, there's no context, there's no, you know, there's no impartiality. It's all done for you. And so by doing these kind of really short little chapters, I feel like we're almost emulating a Dan Brown thriller, where we're assuming that the audience has got zero attention span. So we're just going to do them in all these little bits just to make them feel like they're achieving something. And I think that was just a grave mistake from the publishers and the writer, because the people that I've encountered that feel even ambivalent is sometimes the best you're going to get, let alone positive about Harry and Meghan, are people who aren't reading the Daily Mail, and probably not Dan Brown. I'm massively generalising here, okay? I know that this is making me sound like a complete snob, but unfortunately, sometimes when you want to learn about a topic as serious as racism, you have to be snobby and you have to say, you've got to learn about it. You can't just make an opinion up, especially if you're white. If you're white and you support the royal family, kind of feel like you need to educate yourself to at least have some kind of opinion other than I just feel like I like them. Do you know what I mean? When they've committed so many atrocities, or at least they have been the figurehead of the atrocities that have been committed, you need to have more than just I feel. You know, like, again, as I say, if I went through this video, I would find different ways of saying this if I were writing it down, because I feel like what I'm saying isn't succinct. It's not a true expression of my opinion, because I'm just sort of ad-libbing, right? Well, this whole book is an ad-lib of various stories, opinions, events. My second criticism is that it just wasn't edited. Lots of the stories don't go anywhere. Again, if you were anecdotally having a chit-chat, maybe even if he was on camera with Oprah, these things would be amusing little sound bites. But in the book as a whole, it's got to have a direction. And the only kind of vague clumping together they've done of a narrative direction is the first part is about his childhood and has a fairly large focus around his mother. And I found those passages extremely moving. It doesn't matter to me how rich or privileged someone is. If you've suffered a loss like that at that age, you know, you have my sympathy, obviously. You know, you're a child. The way that it was dealt with was appalling, and the book makes it even worse. The second part of the book is his army experiences. It's the bit I really didn't enjoy. Soldiers have a certain way of mentally surviving war, and he actually goes into this, whereby they dehumanize the enemy and they simplify the good versus bad. And actually he does talk about that, which is really interesting, but it happened right at the end of the war chapter, and I felt like that could have been done right at the start, because the whole of the war chapter just felt like he was being really blasé about serious things. You know, it was a good kill, then we went back to base and played PlayStation. I was just mortified at the casualness of those descriptions. And then later he kind of says there's a reason for that. Again, editorially, I felt that should have come first, because I did nearly DNF it at that point. I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I reading this? You know? The third part for me was the best bit. This was where he met Meghan. It's clearly where a lot of his current opinions on things were formed. You know, sometimes you meet somebody who is a formative person in your life. They change the way you think, they open your mind. And I feel like he was already a person who questioned the people around him, and then he met her and it just tipped him over the scale. And she and I seem to share a lot of the same political opinions for the most part. But she's not great. You know, they both subscribe to this idea that if you work hard enough, you can live in a mansion and have all the amenities and more that life has to offer you, and fly around the world, and you can do charity work, and then you can go to bed at night and feel good about yourself. You know, they're not there to totally disrupt the system. And my politics lean towards disruption than they do, you know, this idea of kind of this cozy capitalism where you then set up some charities. But, and this is where I come in with my strongest defense of them, and particularly of him, he's broken away from something. And I think if you take your average family, look at your own family, there's maybe someone in that family that's referred to as the black sheep of the family. Maybe it's you. That person doesn't even have to do that much to earn that title. They just have to be doing things differently to everybody else. And that shows how much we expect people within families, within cultures, within social groups to behave accordingly. Breaking away from that is uncommon, you know. Somebody who's grown up, I feel like the dog's going to bark. Eddie, please don't. Put his head down there. Growing up in a house full of Republican MPs, Tory MPs, and then deciding that you were going to ditch worldly goods and go and live on a boat sponsored by Greenpeace and fight for the whales, that is very unusual. You know, it's a maverick thing. Now, he was raised, and more than that, indoctrinated, there is no doubt in my mind, to be part of a royal family, an institution, a culture that's separate from everybody else's. It's minuscule, really. And then maybe a part of a larger elite, but still the elite is very tiny. And he broke away. I mean, that to me shows a strength of character. And it's not sort of throwing your toys out of the pram, as the press would like to position it. I think it's, and I say this gently, a political act. Again, as I've said, they didn't go far enough, and I don't think they ever will, but it's still impressive to me, because I don't think if you or I had been born into that same family, we're no different. There's no different DNA, you know. We're all impressionable. And I don't think any of us could say that we would give all that up. And so to have a book where a royal, a very, very prominent royal, even vaguely criticises how that institution works is fascinating to me. It is, like I say, a once in a lifetime opportunity to hear those kind of opinions. Did I need to read about frostbitten penises? Not so much. I mean, in some ways it showed me that he was being really frank. So in that sense, great. but it was either a story about anecdotes or it was a story about a bigger thing. And I just felt like I didn't know what was going on sometimes because I didn't think the book knew. It's a book that made me cringe. So I don't know if that really sells it to anybody. I'm not trying to sell it. What I'm trying, but anything that I want to achieve from this video is that question your own opinions. If you are anti Meghan and Harry, and question your opinions if you're super pro, because ultimately we don't know them, you know. Maybe the only thing we can judge with security is the institution, and by that I mean the royal family, and also I mean capitalism. Yeah, that's my TED talk. How long did I run? Oh, 20 minutes. See, aren't you excited that I'm doing a book and video now? Because you get 20 full minutes of rant rather than just squeezed into 2. Okay, I'm done. I hope you're well. If you've read this book, let me know. Bye.